Hello, rock stars, and welcome to Carson Stevens Music. I am your host, Carson Stevens, and today we're going to tackle a challenge that comes courtesy of Nick and Addison over at JHS Pedals. Welcome to the 7-Pedal Challenge. In this challenge, the idea is to use a set of pedals that you didn't pick yourself in a cohesive and original song. It seemed like a really unique challenge, and I definitely own a lot of pedals that I've never actually used before. So last month, I posted a list of all the pedals I owned to my Facebook page and asked my musician friends to choose 7 of them with no context. Initially, it didn't quite go as planned. But eventually, someone rose to the challenge and provided me with some selections. What did they pick? Well, first, here's what they had to choose from. I'll be showing this list again at the end of the video in case any of you want to pick your own and challenge me to use them. And now, here are the pedals that I've been given. Worthy contenders all, so let's see how I fared. The first thing I decided to do, oddly enough, was to actually write the song. I figured that if I had something to work with, it might suggest how best to use the pedals within that framework. Since this was a pedal challenge and not a songwriting challenge, I selected a few parameters that I could build off of. Namely, the song would be 120 beats a minute, as that's the default tempo that both my DAW and my composing software uses for new projects. The song would also follow a 12-bar blues chord progression, which is fairly simple to compose around and is also a staple of surf rock, the genre that I'm most used to playing. Finally, the song would be in the key of A. I write a lot of songs in this key, as the open position notes lend themselves well to surf riffs. I started out with a basic drum beat done in Reaper using the Steven Slate drums plugin, and fleshed out a very basic verse, solo, outro, verse structure. I then came up with a basic melody, which was based off of some off-the-cuff lyrics I made up on the spot about a woman I'd met recently named Megan. This also worked well because it allowed me to name the song after her, with a pun thrown in for good measure. What can I say? I love puns. But before we get to the pedals, let's talk about gear. For this song, I'll be playing through my Gibson Melody Maker using an orange Tiny Terror 1x12 combo. For bass, I'll be using a Fender Precision run straight into my interface. The first and most difficult pedal to incorporate was the Weeping Demon. At one point I decided I needed a wah, and for some reason thought that this would be a better choice than a Vox. What I quickly learned was that A, where the pivot point on a wah pedal really matters, and B, I lack the coordination to manipulate the darn thing while I'm playing. As a result of this, I definitely was not going to use the Weeping Demon for any of the leads, which left bass? I tried doing the 70s bass thing, but it didn't really fit. Eventually I hit on the idea of simply leaving the pedal half-cocked at the point where the sound curve is at its peak, and using it as a filter. It wasn't ideal for the kind of song that I had in mind, but hey. The Tube Screamer, on the other hand, was infinitely easier to work into the mix. I decided to put it on the rhythm guitar to add some extra dirt, and added the decimator to keep the noise under control. Next up was the Aquapus and the Holy Grail Nano. Both of these pedals scream lead tone to me, so that's what I did. I put them on the lead. I don't like to complicate things. I dialed in a low delay slapback echo and played with the reverb until I had something that fit what I thought the lead should sound like. Things got a little more complicated when it came time to handle the Pog. Eventually I decided to take the tone doubling effect literally and created a counterpoint bit for the leads using an octave up effect. Finally, I was left with the most difficult one, the voice box. Even though I like to sing, I'm not really a vocalist, and it's literally been over a decade since I attempted to put vocals into a track. I thought it would be best to keep it simple and do some basic harmonizing during the solo. Hopefully I can stay in tune. And for the hell of it, I tried to experiment with the voice box's whistle filter, but it didn't turn out quite the way I planned. For the final track, I just whistled myself without using the effects unit, but for this video I left in the original attempt at a whistle filter backup. And done! Let's hear how the final track sounds. that was certainly something, wasn't it? Since I use MIDI to mock up my songs before recording them, I never actually know what the final product is going to sound like until it's done. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. In this case, I definitely see potential, but I think some of the ways that I chose to use the pedals affected the final piece in a negative way. This song would definitely benefit from a do-over, which I wasn't really able to do given the time frame I'd allotted myself in order to work on it. So what would I do differently? The biggest issue is the wah. For this particular song, it just does not sound good on the bass. I would definitely remove it and actually put in the practice to use the pedal effectively in a lead line, and maybe take the chorus off the counterpoint and put it there. The rhythm distortion should be tighter. I think cranking the gain on the amp and then using the tube screamer to tighten it up would have been a good idea, and maybe lowering it in the mix a bit. The second biggest issue is actually the slapback echo on the leads. It makes me sound like I'm hitting notes and strings I didn't intend to, and it's a lot sloppier sounding than I would like. Maybe putting it on the opening motif and nothing else is in the cards for a redo. Finally, the vocals. I initially had problems getting the whistle to sound right, mostly because I'd never used the voice box before and didn't know I could completely suppress the dry vocals just to get the whistle. When I did it the second time for the video, it didn't sound right at all, and I should probably figure out why. As for the actual vocals, they should have either been the lone melody in the solo or put elsewhere, because the solo melody itself got stepped on and the entire solo sounds too crowded. I also feel like I should have either used the high harmony setting or sang an octave higher. As one of my listeners put it, the vocals sound drunk. Another option would be to simply have pushed them farther back into the mix, and as it stands, they're too prominent. In closing, I think I wrote a pretty good song that still needs some work, and I'm glad I got the opportunity to work with a pedal that I never had the chance to do anything with. And isn't that why we're all here in the first place? Anyway, I give this overall effort a C+. Would you like to see me revisit and rework this song in the future? Let me know in the comments below. Do you have an unholy combination of 7 pedals from my collection that you'd like to see me attempt? I'll put the list back up in a moment so you can pause the video and take a look. Leave your picks in the comments and maybe I'll use them in a future video. And thanks for watching. Whatever you do, keep trying new stuff and more importantly, keep making music. I'm Carson Stevens and this has been the 7 Pedal Challenge. See you next time.